You are listening to This Week in Taiwan. I'm Eloise Phillips. Every Saturday, we break down the biggest stories making headlines across the country, from politics and economics to culture and the unexpected. Whether you're tuning in from Taipei or halfway around the world, we've got you covered with what you need to know to stay in the loop. President Lai Ching-te and Premier Cho Jung-tai assured the public that they will keep close communication with the United States to ensure Taiwan's best interests following the US Supreme Court's ruling over the weekend that many of Trump's sweeping tariffs are illegal. On Friday, February 20th local time, the United States Supreme Court ruled that all tariffs issued by the Trump administration under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act were illegal. This ruling does not apply to tariffs targeting specific industries, such as steel under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act. By Saturday, Trump announced on social media that he would instate new 15% global tariffs under Section 122 of the 1974 Trade Act. In response, President Lai said on social media that he would closely monitor the Trump administration's next steps and maintain close communication. He underscored that, regardless of how the situation changes, the government's goal remains to ensure the best treatment for Taiwan, and that already inked agreements are not compromised. The Premier echoed these statements on Monday, noting that Taiwan has already contacted the US as their part of maintaining the recently signed bilateral MOUs and most favourable treatment under the remaining 232 tariffs. Cho said,
"The Supreme Court's ruling hasn't changed the MOU we already negotiated, or the most favored nation treatment under Section 232. We must strive to preserve this foundation and immediately confirm with the U.S. government subsequent legal avenues. There may still be other developments regarding tariffs, so as of today, we have already begun contact and assessment. At an appropriate time, perhaps soon, we will provide a more detailed explanation to the public."
Cho continued that the government would continue to strive for the most favourable terms for Taiwan and its industries based on existing negotiations. The Foreign Ministry warned Tuesday that visa-free entry privileges are intended for legitimate activities such as tourism and business, not for criminal conduct, amid reports that some Taiwanese citizens have used the policy to engage in fraud and other illegal activities overseas. The ministry said it has recently received information indicating that a small number of Taiwanese citizens entered Thailand without visas before travelling onward to scam operations in Myanmar and Cambodia, or used visa-free entry to South Korea to take part in activities including telecommunications fraud, online gambling and money laundering. Such cases have drawn serious attention from law enforcement authorities in Thailand and South Korea, the Foreign Ministry explained, damaging Taiwan's international image and undermining trust and cooperation between Taiwanese representative offices and local police and immigration agencies. Department of East Asian and Pacific Affairs Director General Michael Chow Hon Lin stated, "Only through self-discipline and self-respect can we safeguard the hard-won visa-free treatment and the overall image of the nation, while simultaneously avoiding irreparable costs to individuals, families and society." The ministry said some citizens chose to travel to fraud-linked industrial zones despite knowing the risks or receiving repeated warnings from overseas personnel. In some cases, it said, families later demanded that the government deploy significant diplomatic and law enforcement resources to secure their release after they became trapped. Taiwan provides emergency assistance overseas on humanitarian grounds, the ministry said, but stressed that such services are not intended to serve as a follow-up mechanism for illegal activities abroad. It added that individuals who knowingly travel despite clear risks must bear the responsibility of their actions. The ministry also warned of legal risks beyond local prosecution. It said 62 countries worldwide have extradition treaties with China, while 67 have agreements on mutual legal assistance in criminal matters. In recent cases, Taiwanese citizens who completed sentences abroad were reported by host countries to Chinese embassies or consulates, potentially leading to deportation to China. Taiwanese citizens involved in crimes overseas face not only prosecution in the host country, but also the risk of extradition to China, the Foreign Ministry said, warning that the consequences could be severe. German novelist and philosopher Stephen Thom, who resides in Taiwan, recently met with the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz ahead of the Chancellor's first visit to China. In an interview with Der Spiegel, published Tuesday, Tom described the dinner meeting and emphasized the need for Germany to, quote, firmly reject China's narrative, end quote, particularly on the issue of Taiwan. According to Tom, the invitation came unexpectedly and was arranged through his publisher on short notice. He said the dinner was a focused policy discussion rather than casual gathering, with Merz personally leading the conversation, taking notes and posing numerous questions. Other attendees included the former EU Chamber of Commerce President Jörg Wuttke, Mercedes-Benz Supervisory Board Chairman Martin Brudermüller, and several academics. Tom noted that Merz refrained from stating his own positions during the meeting, but recalled the Chancellor's earlier remarks describing China's so-called goal of reunification with Taiwan as one of the world's most dangerous threats to peace. Tom said the phrasing reflected Merz's nuanced stance on the Taiwan Strait issue. He added that awareness of Taiwan has grown in Germany amid the semiconductor boom and rising geopolitical tensions. Tom believes the new government's approach signals a shift from past administrations that prioritized trade with China, suggesting Berlin now takes a clearer view of the structural challenges Beijing poses. Taiwan's manufacturing sector continued its upward streak for the 7th straight month in January, with the Business Climate Index rising to 98.44 according to the Taiwan Institute of Economic Research, or TIER. The services sector climbed for the 4th month to 95.47, while construction dipped to 99.92. TIER's Macroeconomic Forecasting Center Director Sun Ming-de said strong global demand for AI and high-performance computing has sustained manufacturing growth. Improving exports and a buoyant stock market have also boosted consumer confidence, pushing domestic demand growth above 2%. If Taiwan's economy grows by 7% while prices rise less than 2%, it will be a relatively balanced development, Sun said, describing the scenario as a Goldilocks economy, an ideal state of moderate growth and low inflation. Sun noted that the impact of US retaliatory tariffs has eased after the Supreme Court ruled certain, quote, reciprocal tariffs, unquote, unconstitutional. Current rates under Section 122 are capped at 15% and limited to 150 days, less severe than last year's broad-based hikes. At a Lunar New Year gathering of small and medium-sized enterprises, Taiwan's economic minister, Gong Mingxin, said tariff reductions from 20% to 15% have improved competitiveness against Japan and South Korea. Palau's government will host the 55th Pacific Islands Forum, or PIF, Leaders Summit this year, with Taiwan pledging its full support, the Foreign Ministry stated on Tuesday. Per officials, Palau has begun consultations with close partners, including Taiwan, the United States, Japan, and Australia on how to make the gathering a success. Taiwan, which participates in the PIF as a, quote, development partner, end quote, will work with Palau to highlight the years of bilateral cooperation during the summit, according to the ministry. Michael Lin, Director General of the Department of East Asian and Pacific Affairs, said Palau aims to use the event to showcase how democratic partners and Pacific Island countries are advancing regional development, good governance and resilience. Foreign Minister Lin Jialong visited Palau in December to inspect planned summit venues and promised to assist in setting up green transportation to shuttle dignitaries, which will later serve residents. Taiwan is also planning displays during the forum to present key achievements in agriculture, fisheries, clean energy, tourism, healthcare, and infrastructure cooperation with Palau. Lin said Taipei is confident Palau will uphold PIF traditions and the, quote, Pacific way, end quote, of inclusiveness and consensus building, as it welcomes member states and partners to the summit. Taiwan will, as in past years, send a delegation to participate in related meetings and events under its development partner status. The Institute for National Policy Research, or INPR, held a symposium on Thursday on, quote, Taiwan Strait security and the special defense budget, end quote. Attending scholars warned that opposition parties' push to replace military confrontation with negotiations, relying on slogans without defensive strength, would only heighten China's interest in forcibly unifying Taiwan, leading to a Beiping model trap. The Kuomintang's, or KMT, strong push for a Changxi meeting introduces uncertainties, even if the budget advances to committee review. Foundation on Asia-Pacific Peace Studies President Tang Li-wen said blocking the defence budget does the KMT, quote, more harm than good, end quote. While the KMT advocates negotiations for peace, it ignores China's repeated insistence that, quote, only unification brings peace, end quote, and its refusal to abandon force. The KMT views excessive Taiwanese military build-up as provoking China, not a bargaining chip, yet it offers no clear negotiation path, method or price to make China abandon unification. Tang said,
The KMT thinks it can negotiate with China just relying on those slogans and banners. This will plunge into the Beiping mode, a forced unification trap. The more hesitant the resolve to resist, the more wavering the defense capability, the more it makes the CCP look down on it, the more it encourages the CCP's interest in using force to unify Taiwan.
Taipei Medical University General Education Center Vice Dean Chang Kuo-cheng noted that China's defense budget continues to grow robustly, with military technology and equipment now mature beyond the learning stage. The proposed special budget is merely, quote, patching up gaps in the defense network, end quote. Amid potential April Trump-Xi meeting impacts on Taiwan Strait dynamics and arms sales, the KMT's bid to block purchases for KMT chair Chung Li-won's Chung-Xi meeting clouds budget review. Chang said that even if the special budget went to the committee now, the deliberation process would face cuts and delays. He noted that variables may still arise through cross-party negotiation mechanisms, and that passage was passage, but with cuts, reservations and extended timelines, this would greatly affect actual operations. Chang added that on Tuesday, Legislative Speaker Han Kuo-yu used the analogy of Qing dynasty eunuchs, quote, covering their faces with wet paper, end quote, to warn KMT legislators that further blocking the budget equals chronic suicide for the KMT or Taiwan. And that is it for This Week in Taiwan. My name is Eloise Phillips. If you want to know more about what's going on in Taiwan, visit our website at rti.org.tw/en. Until next time.